Hello everyone, Bashar here. Ashes of Outland was released and Demon Hunter was extremely powerful and it got nerfed and it got nerfed again, blah blah, and finally we have something of a stable metagame here, and I wanted to give you some of the best decks that are around in Standard. I have separated the decks into 4 tiers: A-, A+, and S, which is the common format in classifying decks. I mean, sometimes the people use S, A, B, and C, but these decks are all good, or at least relatively good. So I will give you the decks in ascending power level. So the first deck I will be showing you are the A-, which are the weakest. Then we will go climb up A+, and S. Of course, the skill level has to be taken into account. This is just the average deck power level. For example, guys, I mean, Face Hunter can be relatively played decently by a regular player. However, for example, Galakrond Priest or say Highlander Mage takes a bit of more of a skill. So if you just made the deck without any experience, you will fail. That brings the deck down. So if you have previous experience, those decks will go up. So enough chatter, let's move on to the decks. And all of the deck codes will be in the video descriptions. You can just copy and paste them and you will receive the deck. And one last thing, each of the decks have multiple versions, of course. I just try to present the version that I find the most stable. However, there are alternative versions out there. I will try to talk on those as well. So, and in one tier, there's actually, the power levels are pretty close. I mean, it's not ranked. So, I mean, for example, in A-, we have Totem, Shaman, Big Druid, Resurrect Priest, and Highlander, Galakrond Rogue, Galakrond Warlock, and Galakrond Priest, right? I mean, these are all close in power level. The order does not necessarily mean Totem is the worst and Galakrond Priest is the best, but I mean, they are close. And sorry, there's a lot of chatter, but I want to provide a lot of information. So if you're going for one of these decks, I mean, make sure you don't really spend a lot of dust, because as you can see, they are A- and they are not really very powerful. So if you can make one of these decks with minimum dust expense, you could go for this, but I of course would advise the better decks out there. So we have Totem Shaman. In my experience, after Ashes of Outland was released and after all the nerfs, I think we have a stable metagame for 3 weeks or so now. I have not seen this deck once, so that's gotta say something. I mean, I have never faced Totem Shaman. I even faced a Quest Shaman, which doesn't even exist in the metagame. It's like a tier 4 deck maybe. I mean, D tier or C tier deck or something like that. I have even seen that, but I haven't seen this once. So the deck aims to play some totems, and then you get some value of totemic reflection, which gives your totem +2/+2, and it copies it. If you're using it on a totem, and you copy this, you copy all of your totems with also splitting axe, and you get some value. But in order to make the deck work, you have to play some really questionable stuff like Shield Bearer, blah. So this deck is not really very good. I mean, if you're playing the wild version of this deck, which is extremely powerful, and you have all of this stuff, I mean, you can go for it, but other than that, I do not really advise. So moving on to Big Druid. This used to be actually pretty powerful. It used to be A+ tier or something like that. However, the last nerfs to Albatros and the other stuff have rendered this deck weaker. That's very weird, because no card in this deck was actually nerfed. However, Galakrond Warlock is weaker now, and this deck possibly performed well against Galakrond Warlock. Galakrond Warlock was really a good deck, one of the best decks out there, and since that was nerfed, now Big Druid also fails quite a bit, so it is A-. But if you have this deck, you can play it, of course. I mean, these decks can carry you to Legend if you play enough games and if you play them well. But like I said, I do not advise the A- decks. There's Resurrect Priest. I have played a few matches with these. Obviously, my version did not include Plague of Death because I do not have those. It's a very annoying experience for both the player and the opponent, in my humble opinion. I do not like the deck because it wins by not losing. I mean, you just don't really win your matches. You just make your opponent give up. I mean, they run out of resources, they cannot kill you, and you tire them out. This deck was also pretty good in the last meta, but nerf of the Albatros hit this deck very hard because it's one of the core cards, and they just could not let it go. But it's not that good on 4 mana. I mean, you could you play Bedrock Albatros on turn 3 and you could Grave Rune it on turn 4. Boom, 6 Albatroses in your opponent's deck. Then you could Psycho Pump it 4 more, and after some point they just draw Albatroses, and the deck already was losing to both Rogue and Warlocks out there, so it's not very good after the nerf. It is still barely playable in my opinion. I mean, you have minions that have powerful end of turn effects or death rattle effects, and you keep resurrecting them with Katrina Muerte, Mass Resurrection, Psycho Pump, and you annoy your opponent to death. That's basically what the deck does. Okay, we have Highlander Galakrond Secret Rogue. So many keywords there. So basically you just play one of each good card out there. This deck is just almost the strictly worse version of the non-Highlander Galakrond Secret Rogue. I mean, you just want to play 2 Evil Miscreants, 2 Seal Fates, 2 Devoted Maniacs, etc. because this deck cannot really invoke Galakrond very well. I mean, you can almost never expect to play a fully upgraded Galakrond, whereas the other deck very regularly can play fully upgraded Galakrond. So this is just the worst version of the other deck, and it's also harder to pilot. I mean, misplays are very common because you have a Shadow Step. What to use it on? I mean, you could double use Zephrys or double use Evil Miscreant, blah blah. I mean, these decks are quite harder to pilot. I mean, I have not played this deck myself, obviously, because I don't have the Shadow Jeweler. I mean, Akama is not a very core card, but Shadow Jeweler is a core. But I have played the previous version, and I myself preferred the regular version. I mean, I'm talking about Galakrond Rogue before Ashes of Outland was released, because the gameplay is more recognizable. The learning curve is not very steep. In this deck, the learning curve is quite steep. I mean, you play 10 games and you make very little progress. In the other deck, the non-Highlander version, it goes much smoother. But it's, of course, a decent deck. I mean, if you like Highlander decks, you could play it. Next up, we have the previous king, Galakrond Warlock. Well, of course, this deck lost the Albatros because unlike the Resurrect Priest deck, the Albatros was in this deck just because it was a very good card. I mean, 3 mana 4/3, perfect body, has an annoying downside, and it also ruins Highlander decks, blah blah, and they used to run this. However, now that it's 4 mana, it's not really very playable anymore. And of course, also the Sacrificial Pact nerf prevents you from using the pact on your opponent's demons, which used to wreck demon hunters. Now the deck, I think, packs in a Twisting Nether, yeah, and the Fiendish Rites, or a second Dragonblight Cultist, I'm not very sure. So instead of the Albatrosses, because this deck used to run 2 Albatrosses, and now of course it's not that good. It's still an okay deck though. I mean, if you had it, you can continue playing it. These decks, by the way guys, all are very suited for getting up to Diamond 5, because as you know, in the new ranked system, the win streak stops at Diamond 5. So getting there is not very hard with any of these decks. I mean, getting there is easy. However, after Diamond 5, you have to get 15 more wins than your losses. So you have to play with a win rate above 50%. And I mean, I do not mean 51%, because with 51%, it would take, I think, 750 games. That's a lot of games. I mean, you do not want that. I mean, you want something around 55% or so at the very, very least. Even 55% would take 150 games to reach Legend from Diamond 5. So that's why I do not really advise these decks. However, you can climb into Legend with all of these. This deck, I have played this deck myself. This deck requires a lot of experience and skill. I mean, you have to play a lot of games. I mean, it can be piloted poorly, which I have done myself. Basically, aggro decks just grind you down. I mean, even with all the life gain, you cannot stand before them. I mean, there are multiple versions of this deck as well. I mean, there are some decks that do not employ Morozon but play double Plague of Death, and they do not play as many minions as this. They play double Renew. They do not play the Ssto Decks Veil Weavers, etc., etc. With this deck, my experience was I was stuck to 10 cards for a very, very long while. I mean, if you do not get the Fate Weaver, your hand gets clunked, because a lot of the cards produce extra cards, and it gets hard after some point, because the Invoking Galakrond gives you a random priest minion, Thought Steal gives you additional cards, the Veil Weavers give you additional cards, Madame Lazul gives you additional cards, blah blah blah, and you get stuck to 10 cards. That's annoying. I think I have played like 8 games or so with this deck. I went 3-5, which is a 37.5% win rate, which doesn't really mean much because the sample size is not large, but I have never been able to play Galakrond. I mean, I just got grinded out by my opponent, and by grinded out, I do not mean value-wise, I mean life total-wise. I mean, I had 10 cards, but I could not play my cards, and I was grinded down, or I just gained too much life and countered their tempo and won. So this version might not be the best version. Maybe the versions with Plague of Death are better, but Plague of Death does not fare very well against aggro either. So it's a thing to see. But if you want to play this deck, be prepared to invest a lot of games. I mean, do not just play 10 or 20 games and say, this deck sucks, let's move on to another deck. I mean, if you're going to invest resources in it, which I do not advise. I mean, there are decks out there that are cheaper and easier to learn, so I do not advise. So let's move on to A tier. In the A tier, on the bottom we have Spell Druid. I was not sure to put this on whether on the A- or A. I kind of thought it was better than the Galakrond, Priest and Warlock, etc. So I put it here. This deck has 2 versions, one with 1 exotic Mountseller and one with 2 Mountcellers. The reason is you want to make sure that you draw 3 cards when you play Fungal Fortunes, and I mean 1 exotic Mountseller to make sure that you draw all 3 cards when playing Fungal Fortunes, and 2 exotic Mountcellers to make sure that you have an exotic Mountseller or Kalitas on turn 7. Both have strong points. So what you want to do basically is you have 27 or 28 spells in your deck. You just use Fungal Fortunes, pump your hand, and then play Glowfly Swarm. And the next turn, I mean, you can finish with Savage Roar or Power of the Wild, or just insure them with an Soul of the Forest. That's how it goes. Or sometimes you can go Kalitas Sunsadr and the 0 cost 7 mana spells, Iron Bark and Bog Beam. Kalitas, Iron Bark, Bog Beam, 0 mana Overflow, 2 more cheap spells, 0 mana Glowfly Swarm, Gift of the Wild, go, blah blah, something like that. It's decent, but I mean, there are sometimes just bad draws that kill you. Or, I mean, your opponent is putting pressure on you and you have to use your cards in order to not die, the Crystal Power, the Wrath, etc. And then you do not have as many cards in your hand that you should have. And the Glowfly Swarm is like 3 or 4 maybe minions. Then you can just die. There are also versions out there that play the First Aid. I mean, this version is just a bit faster. I like this version a bit more. And next up we have Zoo. That's barely A tier as well. A case could be made to making it a minus. This deck is based on abusing the new card, the Imprisoned Scrap Imp. So you are playing a ton of 1 mana minions, as you can see here. You play the Scrap Imp. Everything in your hand gets +2/+2. Then you are playing monsters like 1 mana 2/6 taunt, 1 mana 3/3 charge, etc. etc. These minions go crazy. Expired Merchant is used to discard the Hand of Gul'dan, which gets you 3 more cards. And that's why you actually see Zephrys in a deck that actually plays, 14 cards with 2 copies of each. But thing is, you actually go through your deck very quickly, thanks to the Hand of Gul'dans. And with Magic Carpet you give them +1 attack and rush. And Kanretad gives you an additional edge to finish the game. I mean, you get your Fiendish Imps blah blah back with the Prime. It's alright. It's very draw dependent though. I mean, if you draw poorly, if you do not have the Imp, it goes very poorly. And Zephrys is a great finisher, obviously, when it works, because you have a lot of cheap minions out there. Bloodlust, Savage Horde, they are all good finishers, and Zephrys can provide you with those. It's decent. Next up we have the more solid A-tier decks. These decks are pretty good. Aggro Warrior is pretty commonly played in ladder. You might have seen it. This deck requires a bit of piloting as well. It also could be classified as A+, in my opinion. But since you can make mistakes and that can bring your win rate down, I classify this A. When to play the Risky Skipper is important. And sometimes you can do huge things like Risky Skipper, Armor Smith, another minion, and 0 mana Blood Boil Brute, or crazy stuff. This deck is very tough. I mean, just Armor Smith alone wrecks aggressive decks, especially Face Hunter. It just goes down instantly. But if you do not draw the Armor Smith, the match can actually go tougher. With Corsair Cash, you can get a 3/3 Ankar or Live Violence, which provides a lot of value. Risky Skipper, Bomb Wrangler is very powerful. I mean, you are whirlwinding constantly and clearing your opponent's board, and you get Boom Bots out of Bomb Wrangler, which deal a lot of face damage. You can use Wormhole Challenger with Rampage, which is also very great. I mean, for example, your opponent has a 2/2, you use Wormhole Challenger to duel, and then Wormhole Challenger ends up 1/6. The next turn you just Rampage it into a 4/9 and copy it with Bloodstone Mercenary, and if your opponent is a tempo, GG, they are just dead. You can also use the eggs, of course. And as a game finisher, you have Galakrond Elite, Inner Rage, Rampage, and Bloodstone Mercenary combo. I mean, it might look like a little bit too much when you say that like that, but after some point, if you are convinced that you cannot finish the game with your own tempo, it actually is pretty useful. I mean, you just keep the Galakrond Elite in your hand. I mean, and you also have Battle Rages, which can be used with Risky Skipper. For example, you play Risky Skipper, you play something else, and if you had only 2 damage minions on board, your face is also damaged most of the time. You can draw 5 cards with Battle Rage, and you can actually wait for that combo on 9 mana. Of course, another Inner Rage adds 4 more damage to the combo. but just one core clone elite, Inner Rage, Rampage, and Bloodstone Mercenary nets 18 damage. And you have the weapons as well, and you have some early game minions. I mean, that combo is very, very good. Playing very cheap Blood Bowl Brute is also quite powerful. It's a pretty nice deck. It takes some experience to get used to, but it's decent. Next up, we have the Highlander Mage. This deck also could be classified as A+. It's a good deck. Piloting is a bit hard. There are several versions which play Ancient Mysteries. I think that was the name of the card. Where is it? Yeah. And two secrets, Ice Barrier and Flame Ward. There are some versions that do not employ Ancient Mysteries, play only single Ice Barrier as a secret. You obviously have all the Highlander tools. I mean, Zephyrs, Dragon Queen Extraza, the new Reno, the Hero Reno to poof. And you can do some crazy stuff with Dragoncaster. I mean, turn 5 coin Dragoncaster and Power of Creation maybe, or Puzzle Box, or Blizzard, whatever. So this deck has a focus on dragons. There are some decks out there that do not really play as many dragons, but since the deck is controlling, I mean, you eventually get one, but I mean, you do not expect to play Arcane Breath on turn 1 or 2 and discover a card. I mean, because you play like 5 dragons or so. Let's check. 1 dragon here, another dragon here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. And I mean, some versions do not even use the Twilight Drake. That's probably for consistency. I mean, playing Malygos on turn 5 and discovering a spell, or playing Arcane Breath early, that extra dragon helps to do that. It's a decent deck. It can build actually quite a lot of tempo with Astromancer Solarian and an early Dragon Caster into Deep Freeze or Power of Creation or something. It's a powerful deck. It's decent enough. We have Face Hunter. I have played this quite a bit myself. There are different versions of this as well. Some versions employ the Stone Tusk Boar. As you know, it's a very good combo with Scavenger's Ingenuity. You just get a 1 mana 4/4 charge. This version uses Augmented Porcupine and Mognathal Lion combo. I mean, if either of these is obtained with Scavenger's Ingenuity, it's very powerful. You generally look for Toxic Reinforcements on your first opening hand, and you just go for the side quest. Never ever go for the second side quest. I mean, I have played like maybe 100 games or so with this deck. I do not know the entire exact amount, but I have played a lot of games. And you can never really finish the second quest. It's just not possible, because the deck has no defense at all. I mean, you just burn your opponent's face down as quickly as you can, and you do not really have 7 or 8 turns to complete both quests. If you have Terran Gorfiend in your hand, make sure that you finish the side quest with 3 mana open. I mean, for example, you play turn 1 Toxic Reinforcements, turn 2 Hero Power, turn 3 and turn 4 Hero Power, and then the quest is complete. That's not good. I mean, skip one of those turns. For example, on turn 3, do Animal Companion and play Hero Power on turn 4, and then on turn 5 you play the Hero Power, and then you get to your Lepers and play Terran Gorfiend. Boom, 6 damage face, and Terran Gorfiend will give you 2 Leper Gnomes upon death. And Mognathal Lion can also copy the Terran Gorfiend's Death Rattle and bring back those minions. Mognathal Lion is best used with Augment Porcupine though, especially if the lion has the Scavenger's Ingenuity buff. I mean, you attack your opponent, and if you can trade the Mognathal Lion, you deal 8 damage to all of your opponent's minions and face split. It's pretty decent. It's a nice deck, but it's generally auto loss against Resurrect Priest and Galakrond Priest, which are not very common. It's also quite annoying to play against Demon Hunter as well, because they just have better minions and they dispatch the damage faster than you. Against Demon Hunter, Explosive Trap is a must. It's not possible to win when they have the Explosive Trap. I mean, when you do not have the Explosive Trap, you have to have it. You could try your luck with Face Stalker, of course, but it will be later than what you want for, because you do not play Face Stalker and expect it to survive, right? You have to do it on turn 4 or turn 3 with coin. But there is a 1 in 3 chance to get pack tactics, of course, assuming you do not have drawn any of the secrets. So it's a bit hard, but against rogue it's quite powerful, because rogues do not really gain life, and the most they can do is get the lifesteal reborn minion from the Pharaoh Cat, which is of course quite a big chance, or they can play Galakrond, which is just 5 extra life. You can get through that as well. They can race you though. That's a bit annoying. Sometimes they draw pretty nicely and they can race you. The one bad thing about this deck is it has no defense at all. You do not have taunts, you do not have anything. I mean, they can just go face and get away with it. But it's still a decent deck. Next up we have the Merlok Paladin. That's A+. It's a decent deck. However, it's not very commonly played in the meta. I mean, I have played several hundred games in the recent meta, and I have faced against the Merlok Paladin only once, I believe. So this deck looks decent, but it of course struggles against Zephrys, because Zephrys will give your opponent a Hungry Crab, and they will eat your best Murloc for 1 mana and play a 3/4 at it, which is very annoying. And if you have spread too much, they can just clear your board, but you can do a lot of tempo as well. Cold Light Seer is very annoying, of course. I mean, they are preparing for some consecration action or whatever, and Cold Light Seer just ruins their plans. It's a good enough deck. I mean, it's not very expensive either. It just has the new Prime and the Hanging Rod, and other than that we have this Epic, but it's a classic card. I mean, it's not very expensive either. This is one of the relatively budget decks. I mean, you could go for this, and of course you could play it without the Prime if you do not have the stuff. I mean, you could put a second Horde Pillage in there maybe, or maybe a Blessing of Might just for some more aggro, and this is a decent enough deck. Dragon Hunter has been rising in power level, so they have implemented Imprisoned Falmo in there and the Stone Tusk Boar in there, and they try to draw it with Scavenger's Ingenuity, and Scavenger's Ingenuity can also give the Face Stalker there, so you have 1 in 2 chance to get Face Stalker or Stone Tusk Boar, and Stone Tusk Boar is of course a nice finisher. You have the Corrosive Breath for additional face damage, and you have the kill command, and you have the Stormhammer, which is extremely annoying. I mean, they can use this as a 3/4 or a 3/5 weapon, because you cannot counter this weapon, right? I mean, they attack your face once, it goes down to 3/1. They play a dragon, hit your face, you kill that dragon, but that weapon is still there as a 3/1. They play another dragon and hit your face, and you kill that dragon, but even in that case, if they hit face again, they have gotten value as a 3/4 out of this weapon. I mean, it's a bit of an annoying weapon. I guess I shouldn't say it needs a nerf, but I mean, Fire Vortex is something of a clown these days. I mean, these weapons are just automatically better, right? I mean, it has the properties of Fire Vortex and it does something else, and that something else is quite solid. I mean, it can mean 2 or 3 additional durability. So this deck used to be the king before Ashes of Outland released, and now it's still decent, but I guess other decks have received more juice, so it's not at the top. And finally we have the S tier decks, the non-Highlander version of Galakrond Secret Rogue is up there. This is one of the best decks around. This deck got a lot stronger with the Shadow Jeweler Hunter, Secrets, and Blackjack Stunner synergy. You play 4 or 5 secrets in this deck. I mean, you play the 2 ambushes. You play 1 Dirty Tricks and 1 Bamboozle, that's for certain. You can include a second copy of a Bamboozle or Dirty Tricks, but 6 is generally too much. And if you have Blackjack Stunner in your hand and you think that you should return something to your opponent's hand in the next few turns, then you should not play your secret. I mean, keeping your secret is a good idea. Shadow Jeweler Hunter can give you a lot of value by letting you discover a secret from another class. I mean, you play Shadow Jeweler Hunter, you play Ambush, then you are given a secret from Mage, Hunter, and Paladin. And then you pick, for example, the Paladin one, because that's the cheapest. 1 mana, play the Paladin one. Then you are given the option to discover from Mage, Hunter, and Rogue this time, because you played the Paladin secret, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. You can get a lot of value out of this. And since Shadow Jeweler Hunter is a pretty tough guy, I mean, he's a 1/5. He can actually even survive the turn. Maybe you can protect him with a Noble Sacrifice or something like that, or Freezing Trap. It gives a lot of value. You just have the old Galakrond Rogue stuff in there. I mean, the Invokes, the Miscreant, Edwin, Faceless, and the old legendary pack in there. It's just a stronger Galakrond Warlock deck. I mean, which uses Shadow Jeweler Hunter, the Secrets, and Blackjack Stunner instead of Sap and the other stuff. I cannot really recall what was replaced in there from the old Galakrond Warlock. Obviously, it used to have Sap instead of the Blackjack Stunners. Oh, some versions used to run this, I remember now. Some versions ran Shadow Step. Yeah, Shadow Step and Bloodsteel Flywater got replaced. Yeah. Yes, that's about it. Yeah. It used to run SI7 agent. Yeah, these are of course better, and the new secrets are pretty powerful. If you remember, I think Rogue first received their secrets in Kobolds and Catacombs or something like that, and their secrets were horrible. Now these are pretty decent, right? I mean, they play a minion, you get a 2/3 poisonous. They play a spell, you draw 2 cards. They attack your minion, it gets transformed into a minion that costs 3 more. I mean, you get a 4 mana minion at the worst, and if they do it on an Evil Miscreant, you get a 6 mana minion that could change the course of the game if you're lucky, or if you're not unlucky. This is a pretty decent deck. It's in the S tier. We have Tempo Demon Hunter in the S tier as well, which is to be expected, I suppose. I have played a lot of games with this myself. Before all nerfs, after the first nerf, and after the second nerf. It still is one of the best decks out there. I think I hit Legend with this deck with 75% win rate or so, maybe even more. It's extremely powerful. It just does not run out of juice. There are several versions out there. I will tell you why I picked this version. I have played with double Skull of Gul'dan for a very long while, and guys, it's not possible to play, I mean, both Skull of Gul'dans. It's very hard to play even one Skull of Gul'dan, so it's definitely too much, and that's why we're employing a Spectral Sight instead of the second Spectral Skull of Gul'dan, and instead of Ooze, we are using a Sightless Watcher. It's not bad. I mean, rearranging your top card is decent. And for example, if you put something there with Outcast, that Outcast will definitely trigger because it will be your rightmost card when you use it. So it's decent. All of the other cards are pretty much standard. Make sure you use your Twin Slices when you are getting value out of this. For example, if you're playing the mirror matchup and you have a Battlefield on turn 1, it's not very wise to use the Twin Slice there, because I mean, I know you could Twin Slice and hit your opponent's face and play a 2/2 Battlefiend, but generally they will be able to reply to your Battlefiend with something, and then you would have wasted your Twin Slice, because Twin Slice is very useful. I mean, you could play a turn 3 Satyr Overseer and get a 2/2 out of it by using Twin Slice, or make Glaive Bound Adept work on turn 5. It also has some synergy with Altruist. Altruist doesn't work very well in this deck. I mean, I have used it a few times, but it's not very good. Don't be afraid to play Metamorphosis on turn 6. I mean, I have tried to use on Metamorphosis on turn 5, but I don't think that's a very good idea. I mean, not getting any value when you play it is not a very good idea, but you could use it as a 10 mana Pyroblast by playing it for 5 mana, hitting your opponent's face, and the next turn you hit your opponent's face again. So you will basically be using a Pyroblast for 5 mana. I have very rarely used it, very seldomly used it on minions. I mean, it just goes face most of the time. Raging Felt Screamer plus Fist of Fury is a very winning combo. I mean, I have won a lot of mirror matches like that. I mean, I'm just going for it. If I have Raging Felt Screamer, I keep it in the mirror, unless my hand is extremely clunky. And you get a Priest of Furies, and then you win, because, I mean, if you're playing on turn 5, they do not have anything to deal with it. I mean, the only thing that they could have is the same, or they could have a Glaive Bound Adept on board. Make sure you try to get that Adept down, obviously. Kain is a good finisher, of course. This deck is very powerful and solid. And this is the deck I recommend the most, because we were given like 85% of this deck for free, right? I mean, we all have, I mean, Twin Slice is Ashes of Outland, right? No, it's Demon Hunter Initiative. Oh, that's free. That's free as well, I think. Free. I mean, Blazing Battle Mage is just a common. Crimson Sigil is just a common. Chaos Strike is free. Sightless Watcher is free. Spectral Sight is just a common. Amber Wing is free. Eye Beam is free. Right. Satyr Overseer is basic. Altruist is free. Kain has to be crafted. Raging Felt Screamer is free. Adept is free. Metamorphosis has to be crafted. Warglaives have to be crafted. Skull has to be crafted, and Priest of Fury has to be crafted as well. I mean, if you take a look at the dust cost, it's not very high, right? 300 from here, 1,100 total, 2,700, 4,300 or something like that. I mean, 4,300 dust is not something to frown upon. I mean, it's a bit of dust, I know, but guys, you will be getting an S tier deck. It's one of the best decks in the game, and normally you do not get S tier decks with a 0 collection. I mean, if you have just started the game, all of the cards I said are given to you for free, and you just have to invest a 4k dust or something like that to get this deck. So this is the deck I advise the most for everyone. I mean, our final S tier deck is the Highlander Hunter. For example, if you take a look at this deck, guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 legendaries in there, and a lot of stuff. So this costs around 20k dust, maybe 15k, more than 15k, less than 20k. So, and these decks have similar power level. That's why I like the Demon Hunter the best. And I also, that's of course a personal preference, but I like my games to be relatively fast. I mean, I do not like 25-minute games, even if I win them. I mean, if I'm hyped for a deck, maybe I'll go for it, but most of the time I'll try to play decks that have average game expectancies below 10 minutes. So that's why also the Demon Hunter is good for me. And Highlander Hunter has been out there since the new brand was released. When is that? Saviors of Oldham. So August of 2019. It's been out for 9 months. Yeah, 9 months or something like that, right? And since this card is extremely powerful, after this card was released, we always had a Highlander Hunter in the metagame. And of course there are the other Highlander cards, Dragon Queen, Alexstrasza, and Zephrys. I mean, you just put them in and you just put one of each powerful Hunter card and you get a deck. That's what Highlander Hunter does. And these days it's pretty decent because, I mean, with the new expansion it received the Imprisoned Falmo, Stormhammer was recently, that's the adventure card, right? Oh no, it's not from the adventure. Dragonbane is pretty powerful. The adventure gave Escape Mana Saber. It's a very annoying card because, I mean, they use it to accelerate and you cannot really prevent it, right? I mean, there are very few cards that can take off a 3/5 4-mana stealth minion. Diving Griffon gives additional juice. Desert Spear is an extremely annoying weapon. Maiev can delay threats. Rottnest is extremely powerful. Veranus Unleashed Hounds combo is very good. Zigzor is a very nice legendary. If you do not know, Zigzor Prime is 8 mana 4/4 rush and puts 3 more copies when you play it. So you get 4 4/4 rushes out of 8 mana, which is insane. There are some versions that employ a heavier beast synergy and a lower dragon synergy that use Scavenger's Ingenuity. And if you can really hit Zigzor Prime with that, you get 8 mana 4/7/7 rushes, which is 28 damage on its own. I mean, not the turn you played, but the next turn you have definite lethal. It's a pretty strong synergy. You just have to run a little more beast. I mean, you could use Hyena and maybe get a little lower on the dragons, say like Evasive Faving and Big Old Whelp, but then getting Rottnest Drake to work would be harder. Rottnest Drake is a definite include. It's a very powerful card. I mean, you could get rid of the Fairy Dragon, maybe you could get rid of the Henchkin and Hogsteed, but the Hogsteed is a nice defensive tool against the aggressive decks. I mean, you can just take down your opponent's Battle Fiend or something like that. So this deck is very powerful. Like I said, it's pretty solid. It's been out there for 9 months. I mean, the cards in there have of course changed, but it's pretty powerful. If you have any comments or suggestions about the decks, feel free to drop them. Like I said, I will be leaving the code to each deck in the comment section. Like I said, feel free to hit with any questions, suggestions, comments. I mean, if you want any other videos, stuff like that. See you in another video, guys. Bye bye.